Hi, welcome to Algolia DevCon 2024. Today we'll talk about how generative AI meets user experience, the design principles of the new world. I'm Maria Lungu, a software engineer focused on front-end development, and I'm part of the generative shopping experience team where we experiment and build new things using generative AI. Let's start with a quick refresher by talking a little bit about the new era brought by generative AI technologies. Most of us might already be familiar with ChatGPT or DALL-E or Gemini. We have most likely played around generating fun images or asking for help when we are stumped, or even building fun little apps with it. But as it always happens, there is a dark side to this new technology as well. It could be harmless and funny, like Dali not being able to draw hands to save itself, or Google telling us to put glue on pizza. But it can also mean discrimination caused by bias introduced in the datasets, or by spreading deep fakes and misinformation and causing social unrest. New AI technology is taking a huge leap forward, pushing us into a new era of interaction, shifting from human computer interaction to human AI interaction, but also leaving us vulnerable to new risks and threats. Now, as engineers, we have focused on the more techie side of it, making our models better, more performant, more scalable. Yet, we seem to have forgotten the human side of human AI interaction. We have to take a step back and think about the human factor and answer whether this new tech works for our human needs as well. So, how can we navigate this new challenge? Before we dive into the new interaction paradigm, let's bring in a little bit of context and look at our history of interacting with computers in a very, very brief way so we can better understand where we started and where we are now. So, up until now, we mainly worked with two UI paradigms. At the very start of the computer era, we came up with the first one, the batch processing paradigm. Simply put, we interacted with computers by sending a complete set of instructions that we called a batch and waited for it to execute. Now, from a UI perspective, there is basically no back and forth involved. It's just one single point of interaction, the punch card. But then we got mainframes. So we developed the second paradigm, the command based interactions. Us, the users, would take turns interacting with a computer using commands, hence the name. Now, today, a graphical user interface, which is an implementation of the command based interaction, dominates the UX world, making it the way in which we have interacted with technology basically our whole life. But in order to properly use a graphical user interface, we had to develop design principles. For example, like the usability heuristics, which is a set of 10 rules that dominates and assures proper usability of our current systems. So now GenAI comes into play, introducing a new way of interaction, pushing us to shift from telling a computer how to do something to what outcome we expect from it. However, this new way of interaction comes with new challenges, as generative AI introduced generative variability, meaning that from the same input we can get completely different results, and new risks, from inconsistencies to all the way to hallucinations. Now, those factors ended up rendering our previous design principles virtually inapplicable. Putting it together with the mishaps that we mentioned earlier, we are navigating new uncharted territory, which brings us to the appearance of the third UI paradigm, the intent-based outcome specification. However, a new paradigm begs the question, what would be the new design principles that could govern it, making it safe, by mitigating the newly introduced risks, as well as effective by bringing back some control to the user. Now, today, we'll attempt to answer this question. Of course, we are not alone in this quest. IBM has already proposed 6 design principles for generative AI, laying them out in a paper. Today, we'll take a look at them and see how we can apply them in our generative AI apps. And we are going to use the new Algolia shopping guides as a case study. We'll quickly have an overview of both of them, and I promise this is the last bit of theory from this talk. So let's start with a quick high level overview of those principles. Now, this diagram looks a bit complex, but we will end up taking each principle one by one with examples. But looking at it, we can see that we have the 6 principles. On the top, we have the first 3 that are mainly focused on addressing already known issues of AI systems. And the next 3 are mainly and strictly focused on the challenges that are posed by generative AI systems. Now, the main objective of those 6 principles is to address the new user goals that have emerged with this new UI paradigm, which are exploration and optimization. Lastly, our second building block is the Algolia shopping guides, which will serve as our case study. Now, in a nutshell, Algolia shopping guides feature uses generative AI to create content for your website. Shopping guides are basically articles ranging from deep dives into product categories to full product comparisons that would help users to make informed decisions about the products that they are interested in. Now, keep in mind that currently this feature is in private beta, but you will soon be able to test it yourself in public beta. As promised, we are done with the more theoretical part. Let's see it all put together and see how well we applied those principles. Today, we will take a step back a little bit from e-commerce and focus on a completely different area, artworks. We are going to virtually visit and explore the Mauritshuis Museum's artwork collection through a mobile app that is built entirely with Algolia. So, if you have joined us last year for DevCon 2023, you may recall Sarah Diane's live coding session showcasing use cases for generative AI powered by Algolia's capabilities. We have used this to gather user interest, which helped us get a sense of what our users' wants may be and got to work preparing the first iteration of the shopping guides. In doing so, we basically employed a human centered approach strategy in applying the first design principle, which is to design responsibly. Now, back to our museum exploration app, wouldn't it be cool to be able to learn more about a specific artist or to better understand the exhibit from a particular museum room? Now, we could do this by generating some shopping guides, or in our case, we can call them visitor guides from our dashboard. Now, I was too eager and I have already generated some guides for our use case, but I also want to see them all live in my app. But because we would not want our users to be over reliant on AI generated content, we have to add some friction. In doing so, we are also designing for appropriate trust and reliance. Now, think of this friction as the pop up that you get, the "Are you sure you want to close this program?" And we did this by adding an intermediary step, the draft status. This would force me as a user to first review the content generated by AI before publishing the guide and seeing it live in my website. But while reviewing it, I can also see that I am able to edit the generated content. And this, in this way, I am further designing for imperfection by allowing our users to improve the output. Okay, now I can publish this, and now that I already have some guides in my app, we can go ahead and create some new guides. Now, the shopping guides are using an Algolia index as the main source for gathering sample products to use as context for the LM models used for generating said content. Now, in this way, we are basically teaching the AI about the end user, and we are designing for mental models. Now, let's create another guide together. We can start with a generic shopping guide. First, we have to choose a category. Let's say I want to create a guide for a room in the museum for the exhibit from, say, the main hall. And doing so, having to choose a category, I am limiting emergent behaviors of the model. Next, I can also customize the end prompt that would be used to generate the content by choosing a tone and a different language for my guide. And this is how I am co-creating with the AI and providing further controls that are relevant to the use case that I'm having. While we wait for the first step of the generation, well, I will get my first drafts, we can do a quick recap of what we saw. We saw how we can design for imperfection by providing some edit capabilities, and this way we can improve the outputs. And we saw how we can also design for appropriate trust and reliance by adding a little bit of friction in order to avoid over reliance. And we have this with a intermediary draft status. Now we are back and we have four headlines of possible guides that me, the user, can choose from. We are basically now designing for generative variability, where we are leveraging exactly that, multiple outputs, multiple drafts that a user can choose from. And I can choose two guides to generate, and we are ready to generate our final guide. So while we are waiting for the content, we can go on with our recap, where we saw how we can design for mental models by teaching our AI system about the user by providing the index as context. We also saw how we can limit this context and limit any emergent behaviors, and thus designing responsibly by choosing a category for the guide. And we also saw how we can design for co-creation by providing some more controls over the final prompt with the tone and the language. And lastly, we saw how we can design for generative variability by leveraging multiple outputs. We are here providing four drafts of possible guides. Okay, my guides are now ready. I can go over them, review them, edit the content, and finally publish them and enjoy them in my app and learn a bit more about the art collection. Our last step would be to provide a feedback mechanism. We can do this in a explicit user-centered way by directly collecting user feedback through things like likes or dislikes or comments. Or we can do this automatically, let's say in a pragmatic way, by gathering objective metrics about the generated content through an evaluation platform. This is a way, let's say, that we can make sure that we cover the design for imperfection principle in a more data driven way. So we have saw the principles and we saw the corresponding strategies and how we have applied them. Now, of course, there are more strategies that we could and should apply in our development process for generative AI apps, but we are still learning and discovering them as we play and build new software with these technologies. As a final thought, I would like to encourage you to avoid uh, techno solutionism and keep in mind the human factor by developing tech that serves humans and not use humans to serve the tech, making it safe and effective as the IBM team proposes as well. This being said, how would you apply those principles in your generative AI apps? Feel free to reach out in the chat and share your thoughts. Thank you for sticking with me as we dove a little bit into this complex subject. I will leave you with two links, one for the IBM paper, if you would like to read it in full, and another one for the sign up page for the private beta of the shopping guides, if you want to try it out before the public beta. Thank you and enjoy the rest of DEF CON.